Today I'm going to be doing a book summary on Divided We Fall by Trent Reedy. So Divided We Fall basically takes place in Idaho in 2030. So a little bit more advanced than it is today. But it's all about a high school student named Daniel Wright, or Danny for short. And he is 17, normal high schooler. But he decided to enlist in the National Guard. So this is his story on what happened. When he enlisted into the National Guard, he had his dad in mind. His dad was a soldier in the Army, and he actually died in Iraq. So he's just living at home with a single mom. And throughout the book, you can see how important his mom is to him. His mom has severe anxiety because of losing her husband, and she doesn't want to lose her son, obviously. So with him being in the National Guard, she always worries about him and things like that. But the story starts off with kind of explaining Danny's high school background, and also situations that he's going through in high school like a normal kid would. I really love this book because it hits so close to home. You know, when I read this book, I was 17 as well. And as I was reading it, it really made sense because it was written in a high schooler's kind of point of view. So, kind of juggling all these different activities and everything like that. Danny also has a girlfriend. Her name is Jo Bell. Jo Bell's a real big secondary character throughout the book. She really supports Daniel through everything that he goes through, and all the situations that come into play. Danny also has a couple really close friends that he relies on throughout the book, and that's really cool because I have a couple close friends that I rely on. So I mean, it really hit close to home. And throughout the book, you can see that he really relies on his friends and he loves his friends. After school, they'd go out to this place, which is an abandoned train tracks, or they'd go to the lake, and they'd always hang out together, and they were always really close, and they always bonded really well together. And the book first starts out with him, going to football practice, working a job. His dad actually owned his own mechanics garage, and he had a partner. So Danny shares ownership with another older guy, and politics is a really big influence in this book because, especially for a young adult book, and a teenage kind of reading novel, it is really interesting to see how politics were thrown in the situation and how young people were thinking of politics, and how Danny was more of a conservative thinker, but Jo Bell, his girlfriend, was more of a liberal thinker. And throughout the book, you can see how that clash of political views takes place. So the President Rodriguez, wants to put a federal law into place over all the states, saying that you can't have federal benefits, or you can't go through any type of federal program without having an ID card that would track you. So this is a huge important part of the book because this causes riots in Idaho. So in Boise, people are rioting saying, hey, I don't want to be tracked by the federal government. I can't believe I have to be, tracked and kept track of specifically just so I can, have federal benefits or go through the federal system. And this is very, very influential because one night he got called by his officer, in the National Guard so he could go get deployed out to a riots that were sparking all over Boise. So his lieutenant and all of his other guys with his unit in the National Guard post went down to Boise, Idaho, and they had live ammunition and their weapons. Daniel was told to keep his safety off of his weapon, and basically, as the riots began, people started throwing rocks and bricks at all the soldiers. So what they did is they put on gas masks, and they started using tear gas. Well, Danny got a brick thrown at his face, and he accidentally discharged his weapon. And all of his unit thought that people were shooting at him. So basically, 12 U.S. citizens died from that situation. And that was really a really big turning point in the book, because now U.S. citizens died because they were rioting in the streets. And Danny, being a 17-year-old kid, he shot a woman, and there was news media coverage of it, so everybody saw and had witnessed what had happened and how his National Guard unit reacted. So, with that being said, the governor of Idaho took really big protection over everyone who was in Danny's unit. So throughout the book, there's federal agencies like the FBI, the CIA, who are working under President Rodriguez, who are going after all these soldiers because they want to charge them with murder. Well, the governor of Idaho says, no, that's not true. They didn't murder. They were on my orders. I should take the blame for it. And also, hand in hand with that, says, President Rodriguez, I am not going to uphold your federal ID plan. So they cut off the state of Idaho, and they kind of set up a whole barrier around Idaho so no one can get in and no one can get out. And the town really kind of rallies around Daniel, because he not only plays football, he goes to high school full time. He's a senior in high school. He has Joe Bell. He has his other close friends with him, and he also bull rides. So, he has a busy schedule. So he tries to continue his life as normal as much as he can after that incident. And there are people who end up start finding the names of soldiers who were with his unit, and Danny was the first name to be released, Daniel Wright. And there's people going to try to pick fights with him, and the FBI is sneaking into Idaho, and the CIA is sneaking in Idaho, and they end up chasing him around his whole town and in a high-speed chase. And the sheriff's officer, who was actually the head sheriff of the town, knew Daniel's dad really well and knew that Danny was a good kid. So he actually arrested all the FBI and the CIA agents who were trying to chase him because of the governor's basically seceding from the rest of the United States. So Danny's mom went to Washington, and because she has so much anxiety, she went to go on because she's a nurse, she went to a nursing trip in Washington, and she is now cut off from Idaho. She can't see her kids, anything like that. And this first book out of the 3-part series had a lot of situations towards the end that just left you on your seat. And Daniel's mother tried sneaking into Idaho and may have ended up getting shot and killed. And this really sets up greatly for the next book. in the series. And that's my summary. If I would rate this book, I'd rate this book 8 out of a 10. Even though there's all these situations coming into play, I still really like how, it hits so close to home. Like, it just, me being a high school student, it just totally, kind of opens my eyes to, kind of maybe how other high school students feel about either politics and how they react and how they discuss politics, as well as, being a 17-year-old kid thrown into a state versus federal government clash and how he was just such a big part of that. So, this is Divide We Fall by Trent Reedy. Thank you for listening.